Hello everyone, I'm Tim Bussey, Mayor of Bloomington.
Sean Nelson, council member from Bloomington.
Saab Moore, council member from Bloomington.
Mary Supple, Mayor from Richfield.
Sharon Christensen, council member from Richfield.
Lona Dallas-Saunders, Bloomington City Council.
And Amy Merkel, the Recreation Services Director.
Katie Rodriguez, City Manager, Richfield.
Steve Christopher with the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources.
Jack Distel, the Water Resource Specialist for City of Bloomington.
I'm Brian Greedle. I'm the Water Resources Manager at the City of Bloomington and have been serving as the Executive Director for the RBWMO.
Chad Donnelly, Assistant Utility Superintendent for Richfield.
Matthias Odson, Water Resources Engineer for Richfield.
Julie Long, Bloomington City Engineer.
Lori Conley Shoulders, CFO, but acting City Manager this week.
Chris Swanson, management analyst, City of Richfield.
Dustin Leslie, City Clerk, Richfield.
Anybody else on staff?
Sure, I'm Scott Kozer, Public Works Administrative Analyst.
Okay.
I only live here.
Best person ever.
All right, so our first item is consideration of the approval of the minutes of last year's meeting, February 22nd, 2022. Is there a motion from any member to approve the minutes?
I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Supple has moved it, Nelson has seconded. Any discussion or changes to the minutes? All right, all those in favor of approval? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. So next we have consideration of approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is election of officers for 2023. And that will take effect at the next meeting in a year from now. We'll do a vote for each one, so basically a move is a nomination, a second, and then a vote on that item. So a chair, and we do need a member from Bloomington, although I don't believe they have to be present if you want to pick on one of your. So do we have a motion or a nomination for Bloomington person?
I nominate Councilmember D'Alessandro.
I will second.
All right. Any discussion?
I didn't see that coming.
Mr.
All right,
Chair,
all
if I
those-
could
all those in
point out,
favor?
Mr. Chair, all 7 of us are up for election this fall, so it's entirely possible. No matter who we elect.
Be here by the time this rolls around again.
Well, next thing will be a vice chair from Richfield, so if something goes really well, then in your election.
There you go.
Okay, so all those in favor of electing Simona for next year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Now, do we have a nomination for a vice chair from Richfield?
Sure, I'll nominate Councilmember Troutman.
What did I do?
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of Troutman for vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Do you want that?
It's an honor just to be nominated.
I'll leave it up to the secretary to decide if that was a real no. Okay, next item, we have a nomination from Richfield for secretary. We have a nomination for secretary. I don't think a Bloomington person can nominate, I believe. It needs to be a Richfield person chosen.
I'll nominate Councilmember Christensen.
Okay, I'll go ahead and second that. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of Christensen for secretary?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, last one, treasurer from Bloomington. Any motions, any nominations?
I'll nominate Councilmember Moore.
All right. All right, didn't even have to ask. All right, all those in favor of Councilmember Moore, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is resolved. So our next one is to approve the 2023 staff appointments. There is a recommended action. The recommended action to appoint each would be Brian Greedle, Bloomington, as Executive Director. Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
All right, do we have a second? All those in favor of appointing Greedle as Executive Director, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, for Assistant Executive Director, the recommendation is Matthias Olson. Do we have a motion to appoint Matias?
So moved.
Second? Second, all right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. Okay, next we'll have Mr. Greedle present the executive director's report.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. So again, and thank you to Steve Christopher from Bowser for joining us. So we work with Steve. Steve is our representative from the Board of Water and Soil Resources, who we work with as kind of the state agency that kind of oversees the watershed districts and WMOs, and we work with him on a lot of our watershed-based funding things and stuff like that. So I think Mateus is going to kind of kick us off here this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for coming today. I'd like to kick the presentation off by just quickly introducing the RBWMO, a little bit of its history, purpose, and extent. So the Richfield-Bloomington Watershed Management Organization was established in 1983 by a joint powers agreement between Bloomington and Richfield. It covers a little over 7.5 square miles throughout both Richfield and Bloomington. And our purpose is to preserve and utilize natural water storage and water resources within our watershed area to meet the purposes outlined in the Metropolitan Surface Water Management Act. The City Council of Richfield and Bloomington, as you all know, acts as the board for Richfield-Bloomington Watershed Management Organization, and staff from both cities act as the technical advisory committee to carry out the day-to-day duties of the Watershed Management Organization. Just a little closer view of the areas covered by the RBWMO and some of our most important water bodies.
So the staff of the RBWMO continues to be the staff of each member city. And I guess the staff of the city are primarily those that are handling stormwater and other drainage-related aspects within their respective boundaries. Both Richfield and Bloomington serve as the local government unit, or the LGU, with respect to the Wetland Conservation Act. So we approve different wetland boundary drawings and delineations and things like that come in related to the Wetland Conservation Act. Both Bloomington and Richfield have a stormwater utility fund that the activities that help fund the activities, and so all costs are essentially split between the two cities. Costs to RBWMO, like one of them is like the annual insurance, and any consultant fees that we may incur are split evenly amongst the cities. So the WMO itself does not have any actual expenditures as an organization.
Engineering and water resources staff from Richfield and Bloomington make up the technical advisory committee. Each year we meet to review local plan activities, review BES compliance, discuss site development and plan review, and prepare the annual report for our annual meeting. In 2022, we met on December 12th to discuss projects, updates to the MS4 permit, action under the Wetland Conservation Act, last year's work plan, and updated for 2023. Here you can see the members that met as part of the technical advisory committee.
Then we also have our community advisory commissions. So both cities have identified these different commissions. So when engaged within water resource projects within the RBWMO, we can utilize these different bodies to bring in additional water resource perspective on certain projects.
I'll get to the fun part. We get to talk about the 2022 activities. Start by discussing our monitoring program. So Richfield and Bloomington both have robust ongoing water quality monitoring. Highlighted on the map here are the water bodies we're currently tracking: Richfield Lake, Wood Lake, Osborne Pond, Smith Pond, and Wrights Lake. Among other parameters, we track total phosphorus, total suspected solids, and orthophosphorus. Richfield has had a contract with Bar Engineering to conduct water quality monitoring. Beginning in 2023, we're planning to transition to doing this in-house with city staff, and we will continue to work with Bar Engineering in the initial phases of this on training and equipment.
In Bloomington, we handle it similarly. We've been monitoring these water bodies for quite some time now, so we're starting to get a fairly robust data set associated with it, which is kind of exciting. And all of our monitoring is done in-house, handled by Mr. Distel here. And so I think that is the next one, the Smith Park chart. So 2022 was a little bit of an interesting year. So Smith Park Pond has been monitored annually since 2009. And what we've been seeing through some of the data, water quality data that have been coming in from 2022 are a lot lower phosphorus levels. You can see it just fell off a cliff there basically. And so currently our thought is that, a lot of this is likely related to the lack of precipitation that we received over the course of 2022. So we weren't getting these large inputs of water, large inputs of runoff, urban runoff into these ponds. And I think that is potentially one of the reasons why we're seeing such a drastic decrease here in 2022, because it has been somewhat consistent amongst some of the other water bodies that we've been looking at as well. So it's kind of interesting. So some of the 22 activity stuff that we've been up to, a lot of it is based on this Watershed-based Implementation Funding, or WBIF for short. We've talked about these for the last number of years, so I'll just kind of quickly run through them, and we have some additional detail on each of these coming up later. But in 2018, 2019, it was essentially a pilot program that came out where Bowser distributed funding on a county-wide basis, and so for us it was distributed amongst Hennepin County, and so we worked with all the WMOs and the WDs throughout and Hennepin County, and we came up with the Hennepin County Chloride Initiative, which carved 10% off that funding, and it was basically a partnership across all the WDs and WMOs across Hennepin County, primarily focused on identifying ways to reduce salt use on private properties. Then the Minnesota River Basin Group consisted of the RBWMO, 9 Mile Creek Watershed, Riley, Purgatory Bluff Creek Watershed, and the Lower Minnesota River Watershed District. And that one developed a chloride reduction grant program where applicators could essentially come and apply for grant funds to help offset some cost to upgrade some of their equipment to some of the new technology, such as using liquids instead of granular material. The next round came out in 2020, 2021, and that was where we were able to fund a youth education program that Jack will talk about here in a little while, that he has been the primary contact for that. And so essentially school districts, a couple of schools from Richfield and Bloomington, increasing their knowledge on hydrologic and ecological principles. And so that coursework then culminates with a field trip down to the Long Meadow Lake Bridge, so they can kind of implement some of the things that they were learning in the class. And then recently this year, so we have partnered with Hennepin County and the West Metro Watershed Alliance on this conservation, education, and implementation partnership. And let's see, and then we've got our Sheridan Pond Water Quality Outlet. So City of Richfield was already implementing a project to remove accumulated sediment from Sheridan Pond, and with the grant funds we were able to modify the outlet structure to increase the water quality benefit for that pond. And then we're also looking to move forward with a feasibility study regarding hydrologic and biotic integrity within the RBWMO. And that would be specifically looking at 4 different water bodies within the RBWMO. So Wood Lake, Richfield Lake, Wrights Lake, and Smith Park Pond. We've also continued our partnership with Hamlin University on the Adopt a Storm Drain, where residents are able to go online, sign up, adopt a storm drain, help keep it clean, try to, we're only getting about 30% report rate, but they can report the debris that they have cleaned up over the course of the year. So it goes to show a little, your little bit may not make a big difference in your mind, but when we cumulatively put it together, it does make a difference. So and we've touched on the monitoring stuff already. continued website maintenance and updates, so getting the annual reports and any additional information up on the website. So that is primarily handled through the city of Richfield. Working with MnDOT on the 494 project. That work has continued over the course of this summer. And again, the Sheridan Pond project, the sediment removal was occurring this winter with the restoration to finish up here yet this spring. As mentioned, both cities perform the duties of the Wetland Conservation Act as the local government unit. We didn't have any WACA action in the RBWMO this year, so that was easy. And then 10 different sites across the RBWMO were inspected for erosion control related stuff over the course of the construction season.
Now I'll touch on what our 2023 work plan is. Much of this is maintaining our ongoing programs that we've seen success with through 2022 and before. We'll continue to carry on with the youth education program. We're moving forward with preparing a request for proposals for a feasibility study. And so we're going to be looking at aquatic and biologic integrity, specifically invasive carp and goldfish within our lakes and ponds, and see what kinds of opportunities there are for projects to address this and the cost. And as for the West Metro Water Alliance, the conservation education partnership that we have there, they are moving forward with hiring half with Hennepin County, half with the West Metro Water Alliance conservation coordinator. The RBWMO is participating in these meetings, and we're working with the other Washington organizations to figure out what the responsibilities of this position are going to be and what they're going to be tasked with and what kind of projects we'll be able to collaborate on. Ongoing website maintenance and updates, aside from putting out meeting minutes and agendas, we're looking to highlight more of the projects that have been completed and are ongoing within the WMO. Looking to make the site more of a resource as well for staff, for council, and for the general public. And that's an ongoing effort. We'll continue working with our water quality monitoring. As mentioned, Richfield is moving to doing this in-house with city staff. And we'll continue to evaluate our education and outreach program. And we'll touch on some more specific things, the adopted reading program specifically after this. Another exciting opportunity that's come up is the proposal to construct a new Wood Lake Nature Center. And RBWMO is looking to partner with Wood Lake on this, specifically with an exhibit geared towards water quality improvements. And shortly after this, we're going to address in a little more detail. Amy Markle, Richfield's Recreation Services Director, is here, and she'll speak briefly about the project. We'll continue to collaborate with MnDOT on all I-494 related activities as far as stormwater and stormwater utilities go. And it's for the Sheridan Pond dredging project. On the agenda for 2023 is to finish phase 2 of the project, which includes vegetation restoration. So now onto some business items. We'll start with Wood Lake Nature Center. So maybe if you wanted to talk briefly about the project.
Well, thanks for having me. Again, my name's Amy Markle. I serve as the Recreation Services Director. The past few years, we have been planning for a new Wood Lake Nature Center. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the facility. It's beloved, but it's also very tired. And we need to be thinking about its future as it turns 52 in just a little over a month. And it's a regional facility. You know, we know from our stats that we see a lot of students from both Richfield and Bloomington and beyond. So we have a $24 million nature center that we've done pre-design work for, looking at what are the major themes, what are the major components that we would want in it. The way the wetland is delineated at Wood Lake, it really needs to be built where the current building is. But we have some cool design features where we can utilize the sun and solar, geothermal, utilize natural light and wind. So we've been working with HGA to do a lot of that, the pre-design work. We're excited where it's going. Right now we're piecing together the funding. And as we're doing that, we are getting ready for hopefully a 2025 build. And with that to be ready, we're looking at different design companies. And HGA, our architectural firm, has really said if you do the design of the exhibits, it's more helpful to do it on the front end before you design out all the details of the building. So right now we're looking at a few different design companies that are in the Twin Cities. And once we pick one here in the next month or so, we'll be working with them to develop the themes of the exhibits, both indoors and outdoors. And so I think there's a real opportunity to work with our local watershed districts. We have 3 within Richfield, and collaborate and really look at what would be the strong water messaging for our students and for the public that comes. If you've been to Westwood Hills New Nature Center in St. Louis Park, their watershed district sponsored an outdoor exhibit that's really engaging. It's an outdoor stream. It's a landscape feature that students can manipulate and see how water moves when you dam it up or when you have erosion, what happens. So they can play around with it. Kids go into the stream to do it. So it wouldn't have to be the typical indoor exhibit. It definitely could, and it could be both. It could be an outdoor exhibit. But we're on the front and the end of the design, so it would be nice to look to some partners to collaborate for messaging for water exhibits. We do so much water education at Woodlake, so we know that will be a central theme of the education that will be inside the building. So I just wanted to reach out tonight and see if the watershed district's interested, potentially getting a group together where we can really hone in on some of the messages with the design company and think about what do we want to do. It's a blank slate right now, which is really exciting. But once, hopefully all the funding pieces fall into place, and once they do, we want to have this early work kind of set and done so we can get into the design phase and then the building phase, which will be really exciting.
Thank you, yeah. We think that this is a really great opportunity. Woodlake really is a valuable facility to develop for the community, and it's a really exciting chance for us to help the RBWMO contribute more to water education. So now we'll go into a little more detail then on the Sheridan Pond maintenance project. We started construction work in December of 2022 with the task of enhancing the functionality of the pond as a stormwater treatment and flood prevention measure, as well as enhancing the parkland area. We've installed a new outlet structure funded by a Watershed-based Implementation Funding grant from the Board of Water and Soil Resources. We've also taken this opportunity to repair some of the storm sewer outlets and pipes adjacent to the pond. And now the task of phase 2 is going to be to continue to control invasive species and restore the native vegetation around the pond and throughout Sheridan Park. Majority of work for phase 1 of the project is complete, so we're looking at a completion date in April and then moving on to phase 2. As far as our
You want me to talk? Okay, so again, the watershed-based funding, so just kind of some of the numbers that are associated with it. So again, the Lower Minnesota River Basin Group was that cost share grant, offering funding to applicators, primarily the private applicators, to upgrade the technology on some of their equipment. We awarded almost $98,000 worth of cost share funds out there for several different projects. So that was pretty exciting. The Hennepin County Chloride Initiative. Again, looking at ways to reduce salt use primarily on private properties. And the one thing that came out, both of these have been going on for quite some time, and both of them have wrapped up this year, so their final grant reporting was done at the end of 2022. But the Low Salt, No Salt Minnesota campaign came out of this, and so I just wanted to mention that briefly. Can you skip ahead to the next one? So with that, we developed this logo and a toolbox that's essentially intended for LGUs, such as whether it be a city, a watershed district, a watershed management organization, to help deliver this low salt, no salt program to the community. So we're trying to increase awareness and provide support for landowners to help them make decisions to reduce chloride pollution from their properties. And so the program has been piloted in Edina, and we're currently working with with 9 Mile Creek Watershed District to pilot another site in Bloomington here coming up later this spring. So the toolbox has like a host of different tools essentially to help deliver a presentation to a private property owner to help them understand whether there's videos in there, there's like a canned presentation in there that you can modify to whoever your audience is, and just a host of resources in there that can be used. The Hennepin County Chloride Initiative project was selected this year as the Minnesota Association of Watershed Districts Project of the Year for 2022, so I thought that was pretty cool. So we've mentioned the youth education program, and Jack's going to touch on that here in just a minute. And then coming up, RBWMO was awarded $75,000 for 2022-2023, and we've got our partnership with Hennepin County and the West Metro Watershed Alliance. And then we've got five different WMOs within Hennepin County participating as well. So that's Elm Creek, Shingle Creek, West Miss, and Bassett Creek, along with the RBWMO. And so this program essentially is pooling funds, financial resources from the organizations in Hennepin County to help us meet our education and outreach needs. So to try to provide some continuity behind the education and some efficiencies behind it. What's happening right now is Hennepin County is funding half of, so some of this funding is used to fund half a position, and then Hennepin County is funding the other half of a full-time position that they are currently hiring right now to help kind of get this program up off the ground and get it running. So I think that's pretty exciting stuff. The Sheridan Pond project, Mateus talked about, and so that work was also funded through this. And then the last thing that we're working on right now is a feasibility study, again, looking at the hydrologic and biotic interventions to improve water quality and biotic integrity within the RBWMO. So, barring any objections from the board tonight, we're looking to move forward with getting our grant agreement executed here this spring and moving forward with the feasibility study here this year.
Great. So I'll go over the current ongoing youth education program. And this went back to 2021, where we were approached by the Lower Minnesota Valley Refuge Friends, which is a local nonprofit, about an education program that they had done with Burnsville or a neighboring community. And they wanted to do a little bit closer to home. Being that education was very important to the RBWMO, we said yes, but we would lead the grant process to get the money, and we would run the grant, and we would make sure that the curriculum was tailored to the needs to present information that the RBWMO supported. So we worked with the Friends. They had a professional educator. He's on contract with them, and he does all the teaching for the courses. He also he wrote the curriculum. We kind of just laid out what we wanted to be taught. We scaled it mostly towards 4th grade, and that was specifically to go after the state standards for science. Although the program itself is pretty scalable, so you can bump it up or bump it down. And we have taken advantage of that in the programs, and I'll talk about that in a second. So the budget was we got $30,000 with a 5% required local match. And that would approximately cover 400 students at about $75 a student. And the Minnesota Valley Refuge Friends and Jim, the educator, he basically does most of the work, and he puts it through us. And so myself and now Mateus have been lead contacts for the school districts. I do Bloomington, he does Richfield, and we try to do about half-half, so about 200 for each one. The program goals, we are Watershed. So it was to increase knowledge, to increase ability, and to increase confidence. So the knowledge, it's basic understanding of a watershed, understanding how water interacts with the environment, and understanding the concept of water stewardship and identifying with that. And that goes into increased ability. So increasing the ability for the students to go home and say, oh, I know I can do these things in my personal life, or get my parents to change their habits to have an impact on water. And then increase their confidence so they know they can go out and do it. Go ahead, go next slide. So the impact summary to date, we've covered about 314 students, so we're on track. In 2021, we had the Bloomington Summer School, which we did 103 students, and that worked really well. It was in person. It was all outside. We had an outdoor classroom. The Richfield Public Schools that in that winter 2021 was still during the pandemic. They did that online, so we had to convert a lot of it to online teaching. But they did do the field trips in person. The field trips. All right, so the classroom, it goes with about 5 hours of classroom session, and one field trip to the old Cedar Avenue Bridge Park in Bloomington, so they can get down by the river. They can see some of those little floodplain wetlands around there. We bought some macroinvertebrate sampling nets and equipment so they could scoop out some of the bugs in the water and see those. And in summer 2022, we tried to redo the summer school program at Bloomington, but Bloomington schools shifted their organization of summer schools, so it didn't quite work out the same way. So we pivoted. And we ended up partnering with one teacher at the summer school and then the American Indian Studies program. So we covered a lot fewer students than we had predicted. We only got 37 because they were just 2 little sections, although it was great for them. And then Richfield had another session with their public schools, 84 students in person. They are still need to do their field trip, and that's going to come up, I think, here in the spring if the snow ever melts. And hopefully it won't be too wet down there. And so we had thought that would be the final one because it would kind of exhaust the funding. But because the summer 2022 for Bloomington is small, we do have an upcoming Bloomington Public Schools session planned in person, kind of normal. The teacher goes in for an hour once a week for 5 weeks at the school. And that should exhaust all the funds, and that should be the end of it. Go ahead, go next slide. So as I mentioned, the program goals are increasing knowledge, and those are the 3 basic categories. To measure this, to make it a measurable goal, we did create a survey test. We would give it before and after the students took the course. Go ahead and next one. We try to keep it pretty simple. We didn't want to over test people, but this is basically the 6 questions we asked. The yellow highlights are the right answers if you those. But some of them are kind of tricky for 4th grade. What is an example of a non-point source of pollution? That's kind of a hard concept. But other ones like what's a watershed or where's nature. So go ahead to the next one. But these are the results. So this is pre-post percentage of students who answered that question compared, because once in a while you'll get more students and taking the test, and so it's just percentages. And as you see, every single question, there was a significant increase in the percent that got it right. Now, question 1, most people got it right regardless, but when you look at question 5, the tricky one, it does increase 10%, and it's a hard question. So you get those, but then you get some big jumps with 36 to 59, 46 to 9%. So we do think that is proving that we're having a pretty good impact on some knowledge. Go ahead, next one. The way we kind of attempted to look at ability is we had list a number of ways you could go out and help protect water, and basically we would just count the number of items that they put, and if they had so before the average was about 40 items, and after 75 of unique things that people could put. So they seem to think more stuff, and those are some examples. Don't pee in the water. And then for confidence, it was just a simple, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? And there's the pre and post. So it seems like confidence goes up well enough. It's kind of hard to gauge with when there wasn't perfect before after numbers, but the knowledge test was easiest to gauge. Go ahead, next one. So next steps, Richfield will conduct their field trips, and we will conduct the Bloomington school, and then they will do a field trip probably in the same session in fall before it gets too cold. And then it'll be it, and we'll have to end that program. The current funding, I don't know if you saw in there, didn't have any education bits, the one we're talking about, the feasibility study in Sheridan Pond. And that was only because education was tweaked, Bowser's requirements for education was changed, so it wouldn't have fit a program like this. So that's why it wasn't continued on.
So again, we'll be continuing with education and outreach, so I mean, it's something that the RBWMO has really been focused on, especially partnering with the Wood Lake Nature Center and, continuing to kind of bring out some of the urban water management and get that out. And we've identified the youth as kind of one of our primary points of contact, so continue doing that.
And part of our education and outreach is to continue implementing the Adopt a Drain program, and this was something that was started by Hamlin University, and many cities and watershed districts have now partnered with them to promote this initiative where people can adopt a storm drain and keep it clear of debris and trash. Both Richfield and Bloomington have been promoting this for some time. We've had good success. In 2022, we had 18 new participants who adopted 32 new storm drains, and that makes a total of 119 participants who have adopted 212 drains. As Brian mentioned, the report rate is rather low, but even so, we had a reported 1,024 pounds of debris collected in 2022, which was prevented from going into our lakes and ponds. So we're going to continue to actively promote this program and see even greater success in the future. And we're just about wrapping up now, but I'd just like to take a moment to bring forth attention to this public notice that we are going to publish our Richfield-Bloomington Sun Current. Send this out each year as part of our obligations as a watershed management organization, highlighting our area served, our goals, and our current membership. And that concludes our presentation. I think we've covered all the agenda items. Everything we've discussed is looked in more detail in the annual report and as part of the meeting packet that will be provided. So that's all. If there are any questions from the board about any of these things, I welcome
So
them.
we do have a couple items for Mr. O'Leary.
Yep. Did we just get through those and do questions if we have time for that at the end, or?
We can do it either way.
Yeah, we might as well get there. It'll be very quick. So, we need a motion to consider approval of the 2022 annual report, which was in our packet.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion of that item? All right, all in favor of approving the annual report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And then the next one, we need a motion to approve the publication of the public notice that was just shown to us for the Richfield-Bloomington Sun Current. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Not an action item, but it is noted on our agenda that the cities will be splitting this $2,500 insurance for next year. So we'll have a motion to adjourn momentarily, but do we have any questions for the presenters on what we've heard? Audrey?
So you said that we had used up the funding we had for education programs. So were you gonna use the Hennepin County funds then to continue some kind of education, or what's the plan moving forward?
So through our partnership with Hennepin County, we're in the process of kind of developing what that program will look like. And so that program does have an implementation side to it, and there's a couple different avenues that are currently being explored, one of which is looking at kind of multifamily stuff. So how do we engage with people in multifamily type housings and get them to participate and install different water quality BMPs within within their landscape. And so, and then the other thing is through a series of like presentations or like sessions that are focused on specific areas. And so a lot of the details are still kind of yet to be worked out exactly how that's going to happen. But the goal is to be able to meet with these different groups and work with them enough so we actually get to project implementation where we're actually helping them actually build something. So we're not just educating, we're actually doing some implementation of things as well.
President?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So understanding these surface water bodies that we're talking about, they're certainly not used for drinking water in any way. Given everything we've learned about PFAS, are these bodies tested at all for PFAS? Is there even a need to, or? I mean, I ask that completely out of ignorance. I have no idea.
They are not tested for it, but with PFAS, you can basically test for it and you'll probably find it, so.
So are any surface bodies?
It's a really expensive test.
Is it? Okay.
And there's not much we could do about it if we found it. So that's kind of.
Do we know beyond, I mean, obviously, in drinking water, it's certainly not a good thing.
Yeah.
Are there implications on surface bodies that we're talking about here?
For drinking water?
Well, I know those aren't used for drinking water, but for example, for the wildlife or for.
I don't know. They I don't know too much about it, but it doesn't seem to have. It has. I've heard that there's been effect on waterfowl with PFAS, but I don't exactly remember what exactly the effect was. Because it really affects a development of fetus. That's where its biggest effect is. So I think that's where you see it in like viability of some of the young. So it's just one of those really tricky things out there. But a lot of the stormwater ponds, everything, there's a lot of water moving through them. And so that kind of helps dilute things down. Where it gets concentrated in areas like groundwater and kind of gets stuck in some of those plumes. Problematic. We don't do groundwater testing for that, but our drinking water would be too low.
So we can't tie them to the massive goldfish or anything like that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Question about the chart that you had up at the early part of the meeting about the drop-off in phosphates, I think it was. Did I have that right?
Total phosphorus.
Yeah, phosphorus, okay. Go back to that really quick. So I feel like I misunderstood what you said, and I just want to clarify. Those numbers, you're saying that the drop-off is unusual, but it feels to me like the increase over 2018, 2019, 2021 was pretty unusual too. So are we seeing what caused the increase and how much of the drop-off is due to something happened that made it really high in the first place, so of course it's now really low. Whereas if you drew a trend line, absent those three really above normals, it would be about where we would expect it. So what happened there? Are you able to, like, historically help us understand what caused the spike in the first place?
Not with a whole lot of certainty. So, there are a ton of different influences out there on a stormwater body, right? Especially on Smith Park Pond in general, the watershed area is fairly large, which includes, areas of 494. There's an area of Richfield. It's quite large, and so I don't know if we'll ever be able to, pinpoint what exactly it is. I highlighted the drop this year and hypothesized that, a lot of it was the result of the lack of precipitation because it was somewhat consistent across other water bodies that we've seen. So it wasn't just this one in particular. So I can't tell you exactly why why we saw the spike in 19, 20, and 21.
Okay. I guess if you're thinking the way I'm thinking, I'm curious if that, which is the more normal going forward is the question, right? More than if we're in a drought, which is 2022 was drought, then and we're going to be in droughts if climate change is an indicator that we're gonna be more wet, like 2023 has started off, is it gonna be higher? And I don't know if we can be predictive based on historical data, but I'm curious about that.
So this is the extent of our historical data, so it's not an overly robust data set. You know, before 2009, we weren't doing anything out there, and so, you know, that's one of the goals of continuing to be out there and collecting these things, collecting data, is to be able to, you know, be able to answer, or at least have a better idea of what some of those answers might be.
Cool. Now you know the reason that I was selected chair this year, because I'm a nerd. And I asked those questions.
It's a bit of those trend lines follow the wet and dry cycle, so 2014 was that wet year.
Yep.
And that just increases the transport
Yep.
of pollutants, so if you see, and the last 3 years were wet years, that transport just tends to bring more of it in. Smith also has goldfish and other things in it, so it might just be internal processing that kind of isn't functioning quite as well as it used to.
And I can add to that too. One of the things we've learned, Taft Lake, we monitor very closely. And one of the things we've learned, that as the lake composition changes, as the dynamics of the lake change, like temperature, as more as that temperature change and the dissolved oxygen starts to change, some of that bound up phosphorus can just be released from the sediment. So it's not even so much an external effect within the watershed contributing to it. It can just be an internal, just because of natural system changes, those types of things. And we've seen a little bit of that with Taft Lake as well, as the dissolved, it goes, I believe this is what was explained to me, and hopefully I'm getting it right. As the lake turns more anoxic, less dissolved oxygen, it has a more tendency for those phosphorus compounds to dissolve and go into solution, that type of thing too. So that might be, you know, an additional contributor to why some of these lakes spike the.
And this is also where the goldfish population comes in, as bottom feeders. They stir up the sediments where phosphorus is trapped, which can help release it into the water.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.